Hello. Uh, in this video, I'm going to walk through the process of exporting an existing virtual machine in Hyper-V Manager into a hard disk image file, and then create a totally new virtual machine by importing the hard disk image file instead of going through the whole process of installing Windows from an ISO image file. The virtual machine that I have is a Windows 2016 server, and I've got a bunch of softwares installed, Google Chrome installed with multiple Google profiles, etc. And when I create a new machine and log into the new machine, I'll have everything that was there in the old machine. So before I begin, I want to show you a couple of things. One is that whenever you create a new virtual machine, let's say I say virtual machine here, I'm going to go through this again, but I'm just going to quickly show you something here. So there is a place where your virtual machine will be stored on your computer, and this is the location. So usually this is how it comes, and this location right here is the default location that has been stored in Hyper-V Manager. If you haven't changed it yourself, it would usually be C colon user, your name, and like a big location which is somewhere hidden in C drive, which I don't like. So what I do is I go here and set my own location for virtual machines, which is on my computer. I have a separate drive called V drive, and inside V drive I have a folder called VirtualBox. This is where all my virtual machines are, and that's where I want them to be. So instead of selecting that location every time, I have set it as a default location by going on to Action, Hyper-V Settings, and here there are two options on the left: virtual hard disk and virtual machines. So both places I have put it as V-VirtualBox and saved it, and that's basically it's done once, and it will be the default location for your new virtual machines in future. Number two I wanted to show you is something called switch, which is basically the location or how you share your Ethernet card with your virtual machine for it to connect to the internet. Now that you go in here and say virtual switch manager, and you click on host Ethernet card, you would not see anything in the beginning. So you click on view. This is what I have created, and how did I create that is click on new virtual network switch and say external and create new virtual switch, and that's it. A new virtual switch is created here. Give it any name. Like I said, host Ethernet card is the name I gave it. So I say another, I'll call it as internet connection, whatever name you want to give, and then select external network, which is basically your Ethernet connection. This is your computer Ethernet connection. So that automatically comes your packet allow management operating system to share the network adapter, because otherwise it might not be able to be accessed by your virtual machine. So keep that selected and say apply and OK. Now, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to create it, but when you say that, you will see this, it will be saved here. So these are two things. I already have done one called host Ethernet card, so I'm okay with that. I'm going to say cancel, and I'm just going to go back here and check if it has saved. No, it has not. So we're good. Now let's export the current virtual machine into a hard disk image file. Sorry, I might be a little slow when talking, or I might pause for a while because I don't have a script or anything. I am talking as I'm thinking, and I don't think very fast. So, okay, here is my virtual machine. Right click on it and say export. Now, it'll ask you where do you want to store the hard disk image file. So, going back to my folders, I have a location inside this W drive called VM ready to go, or VMs ready to go. Inside here I got multiple hard disk image folders that I would use. I usually keep one of them and delete the previous one as I create a new one, but I don't delete it immediately. I wait for a few days, maybe 2 days, and then I delete them, because these hard disk image files consume a lot of memory. They're like 50 GB each, so I would not want to waste my hard disk space for these files there, which are just sitting there as a backup. All right, so going back to where do I store the browse, I will select this VM ready to go. I don't have to select or create another folder here or select that folder, because that will be created during the export process. Like these folders that are named here are created during the export process. So I'm just going to select that folder. I can copy it, minimize this, and paste it here. Or you can click browse and select the same folder and then say export. So this export process will take a few seconds, during which I'll just pause the video because there's nothing happening, it's just number incrementing to 100. So let me pause it. Okay, close to being done, and it is done. So export process is completed. Now if I go back to the same folder that I had selected, and if you notice there is a new folder created, Win2K16, which is the name of the folder is same as the name of the virtual machine right here. And when I open that folder, there are 3 folders in there, and the key folder that we have to look into is this virtual hard disk. When I open this, there is a file of size 48 GB. Now this is the hard disk image file. It says here type is hard disk image file that we'll be using to create a new virtual machine. And as I mentioned before, if I did, the new virtual machine will have all the softwares, user settings, everything that was there in the original virtual machine. So let's go and create a new virtual machine using this file. To do that, we have to first copy this. Don't cut it. Let it be there, original file. Copy it and go into your location where you want to keep all your virtual machines. That was VDrive VirtualBox for me. Now here we have to create a new folder, and I'm going to name it as, let's say, Win2K16 V1, meaning version 1. Now you can call it anything you want, it doesn't really matter. Give it a name that you would which would help you locate it later, because when you have too many of this, it just becomes very hard to find the one that you want to find. So I'm going here, and I have copied the hard disk image file in the previous folder, and so I'm just going to paste it here. So let me just reopen both the locations so that I can tell you exactly where did I copy it from and where is it coming into. So I have copied it from this location right here, where I had exported that into this file, which was hard disk image file, into this location where I want it to be. So the process of copying is still going on. It's a 48 GB file, so it takes a while. I got a good speed of around 500 Mbps transfer, but it still needs at least around a minute or so. So I might better off pausing the video if it is taking too long, and then come back in 20 seconds. Okay, we are almost done, and alright, so that's my new virtual machine image file, and I'll close this folder. I'll just minimize it, and we have completed the first part of the whole process, which is exporting current virtual machine into a hard disk image file and storing it in the folder where we want to be stored. Now we start with creating a new virtual machine. You can either click here and say virtual machine, and I find it very hard to click here because it does not highlight when I hold my mouse onto the option, so kind of I don't know whether it is really working or not. I mean, like, we're just too much used to the way Windows tells us what is going on. So I move here, the tab is highlighted, I'm happy, I like it. I click on that, I move down here, that's highlighted, good. Come here, that's highlighted. So yeah, I know exactly what's going on. I don't have to think about it. So click on that. The first screen, before you begin, this is something that you can actually click do not show in this page again, because I mean, it's not very important. I don't even read it. I just click next, but for some reasons I just leave it on there. Next. So here is where I will be giving the name of the virtual machine. Now really you can give it any name, but my process, or the way I do it, is like I give the same name as the name of the folder. So usually to copy the folder name or file name, or rename a file, you would press F2 on your keyboard and then you can change it. And instead of changing it, you can right click and copy. There's another trick here, just a short tip. So when you select the folder, wait for a second and soft re-click, which is like not double click, just double click is tuck tuck, that opens the folder, don't do that. Click and the folder is selected, wait for a second and click again, then it gets highlighted to change the name. So right click, copy, come back here and put that in the place of the name of the virtual machine. So I'm going to create a virtual machine with the name Win2k16-v1. So click next. Generation 1 and Generation 2. Generation 2 is, I prefer to keep it as Generation 1 because I really don't need any of the features that Generation 2 brings in. And I've been told Generation 2 has some issues or it's a bit slower. I didn't want to try it out yet. So leave it as Generation 1 where I'm comfortable. Next, this is the memory. Basically this is the RAM, and I give it 16 GB RAM because that's what I need for my machines. You can give it like 12 GB, 8 GB, 6 GB, whatever you like, based on the type of machine, the operating system, and what you do on the machine. And usually the number here is the number of GBs multiplied by 1024. Really doesn't matter, but it just the way I like to do things. So I use my calculator, multiply 16 by 1024, I get 16344, and that's what I put here. Next, the networking configuration. Now this is where I will select the host Ethernet card that I had created by going into Actions and Virtual Switch Manager that I showed in the beginning of the video. So cancel that, come back here. Next. Now here there are three options. Attach a virtual hard disk later. That means you will create a virtual machine which is blank, nothing in there. Create a virtual hard disk. This option is where you will be creating a totally new hard disk, and how it is done is basically through installing Windows Server in the next this thing. I'm just going to go next, but we are not going to select this option here. I'm just going next in this stage to show you what happens next if you selected this. And you might very well know because you have already installed virtual machines, but why not waste few seconds. Next, and this is where it will ask you install an operating system later or system with a bootable disk. This is a usual process. If you're installing Windows or something, you will select this and select the image file. Or if you're installing from a bootable floppy disk, which is, I don't think the case, and most of the people would not even know what's a floppy disk. So don't bother about it. Install an operating system from a network-based installation server. Now this is for professionals. I mean, somebody doing it at home would not use this option. Anyway, let's go back. So what I'm doing here is basically, instead of creating a new virtual hard disk, I'm using the one that we had already copied and pasted here. This was the exported hard disk image file from our stage 1. So I'm going to use that. So this is the location that where we stored it. I'm going to select that option and say browse, go to that location and select that file. So I'm not creating a new hard disk, and just watch and compare to what you saw just before, like a few seconds with this option. When I say next, I didn't get that option at all. It didn't ask me whether I want to install Windows now, later, if now, from where, network, floppy disk, CD-ROM or ISO image file. None of those questions were asked because you selected the hard disk image file which already has answers to that, and it already has the Windows installed in it. So just say finish, and it will create a new virtual machine right there. Because you're using an existing hard disk image, it does not really have to do anything. It just create a virtual machine and link it to that file. That's it. That's what it did. And that's the beauty of creating a virtual machine from an existing hard disk file. And from experience, I tell you, if you don't have a backed up virtual machine hard disk image file and things go wrong in a virtual machine, you will be depressed for a few days. I was, at least, because it just, a lot of things you don't even know what you have done unless you kept a proper record of it. And when we are trying out new things at home, we tend to not, because we don't get paid for our time spent on that. So yeah, this is a really, really helpful process, and I usually do this once in 2 days, or before I start something very uncertain on my existing virtual machine, so that I always have a clean copy of virtual machine running with everything in place. I still keep record of what's on there, but not to the extent that I would use it for anything. So we have created a new virtual machine. I'm just going to start it. Connect first, and then I say start. It takes quite a while when you start a virtual machine first time, and even once it has been used a few times, Windows 2016 server actually takes quite a while to start. Okay, so this is not a very important setting or anything. It asks you what size do you want your window to be when it starts. And I like it 1440 by 900 because my monitor is 1920 by 1080, 1050. So I don't want this to cover my whole screen in the beginning, but I want it to be big enough so that I can notice it, and it's my preference. You can pick whatever you want to pick here. Other thing I just want to show you here is that click on show options and say save my settings for future connections to this virtual machine. That means every time you open, it will open in this size window. So if you think it's useful, just you can do it. Not so important, as I said. I say connect. So now it is still in the process of signing in. I'm just going to pause the video if it keeps. No, it did not take too long, so it started up. So now I maximize the screen. So I see a full-fledged window screen. Let me go back to normal size for a second. Log in first, and then say, once I have logged in, once my desktop shows up, I'm just going to maximize for whatever reasons, when I maximize after logging in, it automatically fits into the new full screen. Now if you notice, this does not look like a new Windows installation. There is no hi, we are doing, Cordana talking to you, or I don't know if 2016 has Cordana, I don't think so. But you don't have anything else. So this is my old virtual machine as it was. I have got some startup, some DAT files to fire at startup to start some process. I got my MySQL server set to run automatically in the beginning, so it has already started running. I have my Apache server to start after a few seconds. Automatic delay started, so it will start after a few seconds. I got my Chrome installed. I got my IntelliJ installed. All my projects that were there. I got my Google Drive desktop portion here, all connected to my account as it was, and I have my Google Chrome profile. If I open Google profile, yeah, sorry, I shouldn't have clicked on IntelliJ. I'm sorry about that. That's not something you want to start as soon as the machine starts, because IntelliJ itself consumes a lot of resources like memory and CPU when you start. So whenever you start your Windows, wait for 2 or 3 minutes before you start any of the applications that consume a lot of resources. Just a good practice. Okay, anyway, I like to keep things where they should be. So yeah, because I started IntelliJ, I can quickly show you that it has all the settings saved as it is. It's not starting for the first time. I didn't even have to install any of the softwares. I got all of them installed. I got my desktop icons here. I had set them up, and they come exactly where they were. There's a folder I created that's there. The projects that I opened through IntelliJ in this virtual machine are here. I can minimize that. I can go back to my Google Chrome. All the profiles that I had saved on Google Chrome are here. So it's pretty much exactly the same machine that was exported here, and this could save you hours and hours, if not days. So I hope this video was useful. I'm not asking you to subscribe to my channel, click like, share, whatever. No, I make these videos for myself for future reference, and I just put them on YouTube, and if it helps somebody, great. If not, they help me. Thank you very much.